Hello team, today's challenge is business day count, where we're given two separate days and we need to figure out how many business days have occurred from the first to the last inclusively. So they actually want to include the start and the end dates when counting, a little bit of stuff there. For this challenge, I want to do something a little bit different. I want to play with the Temporal API. It's still very new, but it is available in pretty much every browser except Safari for some strange reason. And even then, in Safari, at the time of this recording, it is currently in the technology preview. So hopefully very soon, right? And we should start playing with that because it is just so much easier to use than using the date API. Let me show you how, okay? Again, we have these, so we can actually start using those directly. And we do this. I want to set up temporal dates. Okay, in order to do that, I need to access it. So we're going to set this to the T start just to keep things straight in my head. And we go capital T temporal. Okay. And then on there, kind of like the INTL interface, we have access to a bunch of different interfaces inside of there. Okay. And those interfaces have other methods attached to them. So in this case, we want the plain date bit from temporal, okay? And then on that, we can go from. So we've jumped through a couple of hoops already, but really fast. We're using the temporal API. And on there, we are accessing plain date, which allows us to pass in a plain date, right? So we get start, we put it right here, and it does the rest. It sets up that temporal object for us. We can do the exact same thing for the end because that's going to make our lives easier. So we change this to end to keep the names right. Change this to end. Excellent. Okay. Now, down here, we're going to set up a thing. Const. Does this need to be const? I think I had it set to let. So let's change that really fast. I might change that back at the end just to test it because I'm curious. But I did have those set to let in my earlier one, so I'm going to stay there, just because that's what's in my head, okay? But weekdays, not weekends, but weekdays are what we're counting. We're going to set that equal to 0. And we're going to do, of all things, a for loop, okay? The reason that I'm picking a for loop today is because there's a little gotcha here that got me, right? And I want to be able to teach it. It's something that we don't encounter that often. And if you're doing it this way, if you're using the for loop for stuff like this, you might get got to. So here we are, okay? Inside of here, we have the current thing. This would normally be I, right? Let I equal something. But we aren't doing indexes. We're doing temporal dates, okay? So we're going to set it to current, and we're going to set that to T start, okay? And we are going to change T start, which is why I have this set to let, okay? Again, I'm not sure if that's important. I'm going to change these back to const later on just to test the theory. But for now, we have that, okay? Our comparison, okay? The thing that tells us whether we can enter this loop or not is right here. And we go temporal. Again, we're accessing plain date. Please be sure that you're using capital P, capital D all the way through for plain date, okay? And then we do compare. And this is kind of like sort, right? Or, local compare, where it will return a -1, a 0, or just a 1, not a +1, but a 1, depending on whether it is less than, equal to, or greater than, okay? What are we comparing? Well, we want to compare the current with the T end, okay? Whatever our last day is. And we want to make sure that that is less than, equal to 0. So again, we're getting that start date. We're starting there, and we are running through until these things are no longer less than or equal to. Again, it'll either return a -1, 0, or 1, okay? That's our comparison. Boom. Here, we do our increment. And this is where the problem comes, because usually we do I++, okay? And I++ automatically increments, okay? And that's a gotcha right there, because right here, it takes that I, it returns it, and then it increments it, okay? And we don't want that. Or, sorry, we do want that, but we have no way of doing this ++ inside of a temporal element, okay? Instead, what we might do, right, and here's the gotcha, is we might do this. We might use this directly because we can find out that the temporal object has an add method, okay? And then inside of here, we go days, plural, and we increment it by 1. Great, but we haven't captured this, right? With I++, it sends it back into 1, okay? Or back into I. It will +1 and then send it back into I, which is the equivalent of going I plus equals 1 or I equals I plus 1. And that's what we want here. So right here, if you're ever using the for loop for this kind of stuff, where you are doing stuff where you can't cleanly just go I++ or something like that, you need to go current equals, okay? So you need to feed it back into whatever this variable is. Otherwise, it will break. It just won't catch. Nothing will work. You might have a runaway loop. You might not, depending on how your system is set up. But you need to capture that again so that when you go to the next round, the next iteration of the loop, it knows where to start, okay? That's the gotcha. And that's why I wanted to do a for loop today. You could have used a while loop, right? There are a few different ways of doing this, right? While is very popular here, but for gets it done, okay? And it allows us to learn something. Down here, we have an if, okay? We take that current and we go day of week, like this, making sure, yes. Days of week starts on Sunday, okay? So we want to be greater than 0 because it's still 0 indexed. Sunday is still a 0, which means that we need to be greater than 0 and less than, so day of week like this, less than 6 because 6 is Saturday. So anywhere from 1 to 5, which is Monday to Friday, is good. And we do what? Well, we go weekdays plus equals 1, okay? Again, could I have done plus plus here? Absolutely, right? There's no rhyme or reason to it, but I actually like doing plus equals 1. It feels a little bit more clean to me because the plus plus on this side versus the plus plus on the start are two different things. Whereas this is always going to be take whatever that is, add 1 to it, and feed it back into weekdays, okay? With that, we can kick this out the door. So we take this down here, we put it right here, and it works. Now, I said I was going to test this, so I absolutely am. I'm going to change these to const, and still works, okay? So we've created that object. We aren't changing the reference to the object, we're just changing the internals to it. So const absolutely works. The thing that I have with this, other than the fact that it is super, super new, okay? So again, it might not work in your browser just yet if you're using Safari, right? Use a newer version of Chrome or Firefox until that happens. Hopefully by the time you actually watch this, that one's working too, okay? So it is new. But let's go back here and look at this last one, okay? 2026 to 2027, Feb 24, Feb 24. It is the exact same day. It's 365 days distance. Maybe you're doing it over 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. You're doing a lot of looping, okay? And at some point that looping gets exponential. It gets super, super big, right? So my thought when I was doing this is, how can I avoid that? I was trying to do some sort of special math with the weekdays and the remainders, or the weeks and the remainders and all this stuff. Still had to do a loop. Let me show you what I mean, okay? So I've commented this out. I'm pasting it down here. I'm going to make a few changes. The first is I'm going to get a diff, okay? Just like this, we're going to set it equal to tn dot since, right? It is since, and we want to get the t start, okay? Just like this. So with this will give us the number of days by default, okay? Which is okay. right? That'll tell us, at least for this big one, that there are 365 days between this date and this date, because it's a full year. Okay. At least, hopefully, that's what it should return. In my testing, that's what it did. That's how I know. Okay. But we don't want days. We want weeks. Okay. And so what we can do here is we can send in an object. Okay. We set it to smallest unit and set that to weeks, just like this. And now we get those weeks. Okay. We actually get everything, surprisingly. So we get years and weeks and months and days. And if you were to console log this right now, you would see that most of those are set to 0, with weeks being set to however many weeks it is. And this won't be a floating point number. It will be an integer, because what the Temporal API does is it takes this and truncates it. Essentially, it rounds it down, right? It floors it, but truncate and floor, I think there's a subtle difference there. So technically what it's doing is truncating, which is taking whatever is after the dot, right? Whatever is after the decimal, and just getting rid of it, throwing it away, okay? Which means that now we have weeks. We could add weeks to here. We could go dot weeks, okay? Or we could destructure, just like this. Since we're probably going to use the variable weeks anyway, this works, okay? It saves us a little bit of extra, and now we need to do a little extra down here, okay? So this weekdays, okay, we want to change this as well, and we want to change it to whatever the weeks are times 5, okay? So whatever weeks we get, we multiply by 5, and this gives us the starting place, right? Or at least it gives us a hefty jump on everything that we need, which means that down inside of here, we just need to figure out the remainder of that. And if we can figure out the remainder of that, well, then we're in pretty good state, okay? Now, we don't actually calculate the remainder. Instead, what we do is we take that start date and add the number of weeks to it, right? Which means that technically our current is whatever that means, okay? So dot add, which I think we used right here, right? Dot add. But in this case, instead of days, right, we pass in weeks. And we could set it to weeks, but we really don't have to. We can just get rid of that because it's the same thing and JavaScript works, okay? So what did we do? Well, we added this line. We updated this line here to make sure that we're starting, our weekdays are starting at the number of weeks that we discovered, okay? And then we set our loop to start at the correct day, which is whatever the start day is plus all of those weeks. And it still works, okay? But now, at least in theory, right? I haven't tested this completely because I'm still new to the Temporal API myself, but at least in theory, the most this loop can do is probably 6, right? Because the weeks takes care of it, and we've incremented all of those weeks that we found in the since, which means that in theory, this loop should only go 6 times maximum. That should make it a whole lot faster, doing a lot of stuff in there, right? In theory, could I do something else? Again, I need to be able to do this day of the week step. So there's something in there where I need that loop, okay? If you didn't want to use the temporal, you could still do something similar to this using date objects, right? Your math might be a little bit different to get there, and you'd have to calculate around the milliseconds since epoch, right? You'd have to do stuff like that. But you could use something similar to get that job done, okay? So we use the Temporal API, very new. Again, hopefully it works completely when you finally see this video, but probably not, right? We probably have to wait a little bit. But it's fun, and it's so easy. Look at this. We took that start date and just passed it in, right? And it just works. We have access to a bunch of different interfaces on Temporal, so we can do that. We calculated based on since. It does all of that work for us, and we can get this information in different formats. So we have the smallest unit. We can also do largest unit. We can do rounding. So instead of truncating, we can round up, right? Lots of flexibility here. Lots of like simple ways to add. Not only weeks, I could have put months in here. I could have put days. You can build out an entire object for how you want that math to be, and it will work, which is just amazing. Once this becomes more popular, it's going to be so fun to use it, right? I hate working with dates, but I feel like temporal is going to be a lot more fun, a lot easier. And yeah, we did it. We also tried to optimize for speed a little bit by only doing the remainder inside of this loop to calculate those days of the week, right? And it works. Did you find this interesting? I definitely find this interesting, and I find it so fun, right? Again, working with dates, I hate it, but this I can get behind, and maybe you can too, right? If you think that I am off my rails, if you hate this idea, hit me up in those comments. If you found an easier way that skipped the loop, I would love to see that too. Also drop that in the comments. Otherwise, today this has been Business Day Count, and I will see you tomorrow.